Welcome to the DjamgaMind Canada series. I'm your host, Etienne Noumen. Today we are decoding Bill C-27, the Digital Charter Implementation Act. If you think this is just a PIPEDA update, you are mistaken. This bill introduces the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, AIDA, which fundamentally changes the legal landscape for Canadian healthcare. We are talking about a new category called high-impact systems. If your triage algorithm or patient scheduling bot falls into this category, and it likely does, you are no longer just looking at a privacy breach. You are looking at penalties of up to 5% of global revenue or $25 million. Our AI intelligence agents have reviewed the text to debate the definition of high impact, the new tribunal powers, and why your board of directors might be personally liable. Let's enter the simulation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are running an executive-level strategy session, and the air in this boardroom is thick with urgency. You, the listener, are the CEO of a major Canadian hospital system, and we need to understand exactly what Bill C-27 Canada's sweeping digital policy overhaul means for our operations right now.
Precisely. And this is not a drill, and it's definitely not an IT ticket. This legislation, specifically the two major components, the Consumer Privacy Protection Act and the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, is probably the largest financial and operational risk we face this year.
And it has to be.
Our mission today is to cut through the legalese and analyze this as a massive liability, not just some privacy law update.
Right. And I'm coming at this as the Chief Innovation Officer. My focus is rapid AI deployment. We have tools ready to improve triage, surgical planning, nurse scheduling. I see C-27 as, well, a potential roadblock to saving lives and reducing costs.
And I, as your general counsel, see C-27 as a loaded gun. It's aimed squarely at our balance sheet and, frankly, potentially at the personal assets of our executive team. We have to start with the staggering new financial reality.
Okay, let's start there, with the stick. Before C-27, we operated under PIPEDA. What was the penalty framework then, and why is the CPPA so different?
Well, under PIPEDA, the fines were largely administrative, capped in the low millions, and honestly, they were often just seen as a cost of doing business.
A slap on the wrist.
A slap on the wrist. Many organizations just absorb them. This new legislation, it changes everything.
So give me the numbers that are keeping you up at night.
Okay. We're talking about maximum penalties for knowing contraventions under Section 128 of the CPPA. If we get convicted by indictment, the fine is up to $25 million.
$25 million?
Or 5% of our entire organization's global gross revenue from the last year, whichever is greater.
Wait, 5% of global revenue? That number is... it's truly tectonic.
It is. And you have to realize, this framework is designed to mirror what we've seen in Europe with GDPR. It's got that kind of leverage.
So it's not just a Canadian fine anymore?
No. It ties our exposure directly to our size and global operational footprint. And look, even if we avoid indictment, the summary conviction maximum is still $20 million, or 4% of global gross revenue.
So the idea that we could just treat a potential fine as a calculated risk for faster deployment it's simply off the table now. The exposure is just too high to absorb.
Correct. The first action item for any executive has to be immediate budget allocation to compliance. This moves from being a simple compliance issue to a genuine enterprise risk that needs board oversight. These fines can jeopardize the viability of our hospital system.
That covers the data side under the CPPA, but here's where it gets complicated for me as the CIO. How does the AI Act tie into these massive financial penalties? We're building new systems, right? We're not just managing existing patient data.
AIDA is what creates the framework around the tools you're building. If those tools are misused or deployed improperly, well, that's what creates the violations that CPPA's fines will punish. The two acts are inextricably linked. AIDA really kicks in when we engage in a regulated activity, which is basically designing, developing, or using AI systems in the course of, interprovincial or international commerce.
Given our digital infrastructure, that's almost everything we do with advanced algorithms.
It is.
So we really need to know what the government thinks an AI system is. I mean, we have simple predictive maintenance algorithms for our MRI machines, but we're also trialing a complex patient chatbot for symptom checking. Are both of those caught in this?
The Act defines an artificial intelligence system as a technology that autonomously or partially autonomously processes data related to human activities. using algorithms to generate content, predictions, recommendations, or decisions.
That's incredibly broad. So in plain English, if the system thinks for itself or even just suggests a patient's next step based on data, it's AI under AIDA.
Exactly. And now we hit the central regulatory gateway, what I'm calling the high-impact trap. AIDA Section 7 forces us to assess every single one of our AI systems to see if it qualifies as high impact.
And from your perspective as general counsel?
From my perspective, we cannot assume anything we use in patient care is not high impact. We just can't.
But why are you so certain? Why would everything in our hospital be considered high impact?
Because the designation boils down to risk, specifically the risk of harm or biased output. And harm is defined so expansively. Physical, psychological injury, property damage, economic loss. Biased output is unjustly disadvantaging someone based on prohibited grounds of discrimination.
That definition feels like it's designed to be impossible to avoid in healthcare. Okay, take our nurse scheduling tool. It's just an efficiency tool.
Right.
But if that optimization leads to, say, chronic staff fatigue that results in a medication error,
then you have directly caused physical harm to a patient.
yes. Or what about our trial triage bot? If that algorithm has some inherent bias that we don't even see, and it leads to slower treatment for a specific demographic group,
Then you're guilty of biased output. If the system touches patient care, diagnosis, treatment, or resource allocation, we have to proceed as if it's high impact. Period.
this frankly feels like operational paralysis. If we have to submit every tool to this massive regulatory process just to prove it won't cause harm, we'll be stuck in pre-deployment forever. We can't build quickly if we're constantly looking over our shoulder.
I get the CIO perspective, I really do. But the new reality is that safe innovation is the only innovation left that won't bankrupt the system. And if a tool is high impact, we have to fulfill non-negotiable obligations under AIDA Sections 8, 9, and 11. These are your mandatory action items.
Okay, walk me through them. What's the cost to my innovation speed?
First, Section 8. We have to identify, assess, and mitigate the risks of harm or bias output. This means implementing comprehensive measures to manage those risks before we deploy anything. It's not optional testing. It's mandatory risk architecture.
So no more quick penetration tests. We need to continuously model failure scenarios and show how the system handles them.
Exactly, and that flows right into Section 9. Continuous monitoring. We have to establish measures to monitor compliance and evaluate the effectiveness of our mitigation over time. A static risk assessment isn't going to cut it. We need living audit trails.
Continuous monitoring requires serious ongoing resources. That's a huge commitment. But there's another piece here that really concerns me, the transparency requirement.
Yes, Section 11.2. For every high-impact system, we have to publish a clear language description of it on a publicly accessible website.
A public website. We have to publish the details of our internal tools. That's just giving away our proprietary innovation. If we detail how our surgical scheduling AI works, we lose our edge.
I understand, but the law mandates public accountability over commercial secrecy when public safety is at stake. The description has to include the system's intended use, the predictions it makes, and critically, the mitigation measures we've established. We have to be transparent about the risks we've found and how we're controlling them.
So, if we choose speed and we say skip that Section 8 mitigation or we try to fudge the transparency part, what's the ultimate operational threat? What can the regulators do?
The ultimate threat is the extreme administrative power given to the minister, the power to just shut us down instantly.
A complete shutdown of a critical system.
Yes. They can demand our records at any time. They can order an independent audit that we have to pay for. But the real hammer is the cessation power in Section 17. If the minister has reasonable grounds to believe that the use of the system gives rise to a serious risk of imminent harm, they can order us to cease using it immediately.
Serious risk of imminent harm. That sounds like a pretty low bar for a shutdown order. I can just imagine the minister shutting down our central patient triage AI at 3 a.m. on a Saturday based on some preliminary report.
And the consequences would be catastrophic, not just for our reputation, but for patient care. And here's the key connection. If we fail to do the mandatory risk assessment from Section 8 and 9, we are basically handing the minister the reasonable grounds they need to issue that shutdown order.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, this power is designed to force accountability before something terrible happens. It's like the government has the ultimate safety switch.
Precisely. And the threat doesn't stop with the corporation. We have to talk about the personal risk to our executive leadership. It's one thing for the hospital to take a 5% revenue hit, but what about the directors and officers?
I need to know exactly where my liability begins. If I'm pushing for fast deployment, Where do I cross the line from being an innovator to being personally liable for an omission?
This is maybe the most critical piece for the C-suite. We have to look at the directors and officers' liability in AIDA. The Act says that an officer, director, or agent of a corporation that contravenes the key sections, the ones about assessment and mitigation, is liable personally if they, and this is the quote, directed, authorized, assented to, acquiesced in, or participated in the commission of that contravention.
The phrase acquiesced in, that is, that's terrifyingly broad for someone in my position who is focused on macro strategy, not microcoding.
It's the new burden of due diligence. Let's play this out. Suppose we sign off on the annual budget, knowing full well that the resources requested for the Section 8 risk mitigation were, say, halved by finance to save costs. Later, a flawed AI system causes patient harm.
And the regulator investigating finds documented evidence that I, as the CIO, signed off on that reduced compliance budget. I effectively acquiesced in the failure to mitigate risk.
That's it. The old defense of, I didn't know the tech team was cutting corners, is fundamentally gone. Executive failure to ensure the proper risk architecture is funded and managed exposes you to personal financial risk. Your house could be on the line.
So what does this all mean for our strategy moving forward? Our central finding today is just undeniable. Bill C-27 is a mandate for radical accountability. It's a fundamental and really urgent shift in executive responsibility. It makes due diligence for AI systems that carry a risk of harm non-negotiables.
And this leads directly to the single most important safety valve we have. AIDA includes a critical due diligence defense in Section 34. This is the key to corporate and personal protection.
How exactly does that defense work? What do we have to do to prove due diligence?
The Act is clear. It says, no person is to be found guilty of an offense if the person establishes that they exercised all due diligence to prevent its commission. This means we have to build a system specifically designed to generate evidence of that diligence. Look, the only way to establish that defense is by proving we proactively set up and funded those Section 8 risk mitigation measures and the Section 9 continuous monitoring. We have to show a regulator or a court that we saw the potential for harm and we took every reasonable step to prevent it. That documentation is your mandatory insurance policy.
The ultimate lesson for everyone in the C-suite is this. You cannot decouple innovation from accountability under this bill. If you're innovating with AI, you must treat rigorous risk mitigation and documentation as the most critical step. Anything less puts the entire enterprise and the personal wealth of its leaders at unacceptable risk.
So our strategy session concludes here. Immediate, high-level resource allocation is required to build a verifiable governance framework. We have to document our due diligence now before the next AI tool is even considered for deployment.
A powerful and urgent takeaway for anyone operating in this new digital economy. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into your source material. We hope this operational analysis helps you plan for the future. We'll see you next time.
That was the intelligence briefing on Bill C-27. The bottom line? The era of unregulated AI in Canadian hospitals is over. You now need a privacy management program that is not just a document on a shelf, but a living operational shield. Whether you are in Ontario, Alberta, or BC, this federal baseline is setting the new standard. To get these briefings delivered to your inbox every Monday morning, covering everything from provincial HIA updates to federal mandates, subscribe to the full Canada series at DjamgaMind.com. Don't read the regulation, listen to the risk. I'll see you in the next briefing.